We're going to begin. I'd like to be able to let Priscilla Gold Darby have an opportunity on behalf of the congregation to just say a couple of words of welcome.
Wow, I love that. I didn't know I was going to do that, but how great. It's great to see everybody here, and I'm really like that we're rotating our weeks to make announcements during Shabbat and as part of Shabbat. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Wonderful. Now, as we begin and prepare to open for our services tonight, Molly and Christopher have chosen the opening song of Dodi Lee. Now, and I want to give a brief explanation. Jewish tradition has compared the relationship between the people of Israel and the Shabbat as that of, for Israel, as the groom, and the Shabbat, the Sabbath, as the bride. Of course, we know this with the Lecha Dodi. Well, this beautiful relationship continues when we share in song words from the biblical book of love, that is the Song of Songs. So for tonight, the words of Dodi Lee are words addressed to each of us as they come from our Sabbath bride. Dodi Li va'ani lo, I, says the Sabbath bride, am my beloved's, and he is mine. Thank you, Molly and Christopher. That was lovely. And now we prepare to welcome the Sabbath bride as we kindle the lights for Shabbat. And I would invite that our Ann Zelniker to unmute yourself. Wonderful. And if you'll share now with us. On page 2 is the reading, and then the blessings on page 1.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who have kindled light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who hallows us with his mitzvot and commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Thank you, Ann. And now we continue on page 8 and 9 as we join with, though we're muted, because I'm going to mute myself too, but I can't help but join in singing. Once again, welcoming the Sabbath bride, this time with the words from Lecha Dodi, Come, my beloved, let us welcome the Sabbath bride.
Lecha Dodi ligrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המאוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי ממקור הברכה, מראש מקדם ניסוחה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תקלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת מעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני ים סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you. And now continuing in song, because that's what really I feel brings life to worship. It's on page 10, as we share in Shalom Aleichem, those words which we express greetings to the ministering angels, the two ministering angels that join us on Shabbat. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Yon. Mi melech malchi
And now, as we prepare to enter into this moment now of worship, beginning with the words of the Chatzi Kaddish on page 11, followed by the words on page 12 of the Baruch Hu. This formal introduction of the service, as I've said before, is a time when we thank God for all the blessings in our lives. And as I have said before, for me, this is a wonderful moment just to pause and reflect. Allow yourself to experience, to savor the blessings in your lives at this moment, so that when we do rise, we do so in a way in which we share to those feelings, that fullness of heart with God in appreciation. We pause for just a moment.
Alvit Kadash Shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ati biamlich malkuti bechayikon uviomechon uvekayidiko bit Yisrael
Baragala, Baragala, Uvizman Kari, Vimaru. Amen. Ishmeira Panavorach, Le'olam Olam
Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitbar, Vitromam, Vitnase, Vitadar, Vitalei, Vitalal, Shemedi Kurisha, Brichu, Leila, Mingobiachata, Vishirata, Tush Bechata, Vanechemata, Damiran Biama, Veimeru, Amen.
And we now rise, as on page 12, we share together in the words of the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Vaed.
Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due now and forever. The top of page 13. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way in which time and seasons glide. Your breath guides the sails of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai Ama'ariv Aravim. We also recite that one blessing, the Chatimah, that says to God, your life, you are the source of everlasting love for us. And when we then recite that blessing, it leads us into the Shema. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo, Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Vaed.
Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. Please be seated. As we continue first chanting in Hebrew and then reciting in English, the words that follow the Shema, the Ve'ahavta, on page 17.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות ידיך והיו לטוטפות בעיניך וכתבתם המוזות זאת ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
As together we read, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day, and impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign upon your hands, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. On page 18. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get there from here to there except by joining hands, marching together as we sing our marching song of freedom, Mika Mocha, on page 19. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ka'al Yisrael. Now on page 20, our evening prayer. This is the prayer that my father, of blessed memory, would refer to as "Now I lay me down to sleep." It's the one in which we prepare ourselves as we move into this night. We're bringing the day to a close, which in Jewish tradition, we're actually now bringing a new day into the world, both of which gives us an opportunity to reflect on this beautiful evening transition from night to waking up in the morning to life. Hashkivenu. That's my most favorite of all, the Hashkivenu melodies of Helpman. I'm so glad you did that tonight. Thank you. We read the translation. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace and guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. And now on page 22, this section of the service is Kedushat Hayom, the sanctification of this day of Shabbat. We do that, of course, with lighting the candles. At the end of the Shabbat service, we will do so as we make Kiddush. But at this point in the service, we could make sanctification of this day of Shabbat through song from words of Torah, Vishamru. Shabbat vayinafash, the day of rest, vayinafash, and you've actually resold my soul again. It's such a beautiful lyric. And now we move to the central part of our service on page 23, as we petition God to open our lips so that they may declare your glory. Please rise.
Adonai, sevatai tiftach, ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohe Avoteinu ve'Imotenu, Elohe Avraham, Elohe Yitzchak, Elohe Yaakov, Elohe Sarah, Elohe Rivka, Elohe Rachel, Elohe Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Nahara, Elyon, Gomeh Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Goneh Hakom, Ve'Zocher Hasdei Avot, Ve'Emahot, U'Mavi Geula Levinei Bneihem, Le'man Shemo be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magid. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Va'itrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaya kol atah, Rab le'Hoshia. Michael Kaim Bechesed, Michael Jacob Berachamim Rabim, Sov Mefnoflim Verofei Kolim, Umatir Asurim, Umchayem Emunato, Livshei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevorot, Umidom Elach, Melech Bemid Umchayi, Umatzmi HaKushua, V'ne'eman ata le'achayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mikael HaChol.
We continue on the middle of page 27. As together we read in the English, you are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. I invite you to be seated. We continue on page 29. Ever-present one, Ritzeh, Adonai Eloheinu, Ba'amcha Yisrael, U'tefilatam ba'ahava tekabel. May we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayers. Accept our prayers. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha, v'yir'ah na'avod. Now on page 31, as we prepare to bring this section of our service to a close, we share in Birkat Shalom, the blessing of peace, through song, the words of Shalom Rav, grant abundant peace to us.
Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael, Amcha
Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people, Israel, with peace. With peace in our hearts, we pause now for silent prayer. Words that so often we hear, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you. But following our meditation, you will hear it in the original Hebrew. Yehiyu l'ratzon. May it be your will, O God, to hear the words from our heart. That was lovely. Thank you. Good evening and good Shabbos. This week's Torah portion is called Toldot, which is generations or descendants. And it comes from the book of Genesis. And what a rich, salacious portion it is. Filled with, as one commentary writes, the drama of a prototypical dysfunctional family, sibling rivalry, blatant parental favoritism, a breakdown of communication between husband and wife, taking advantage of the infirmity of an old man, and lots of scheming. It opens with the line, Ve'ele toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. And these are the generations or the descendants of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Well, the portion then continues with a brief passage that states that Isaac, who is now 60 years old, and his wife Rebekah have been married for 20 years and are still without children. Isaac does what his father did before him. He petitions God on behalf of his wife for a child. That prayer is fulfilled, and Rebecca gives birth to twin sons. Well, as the drama unfolds, we discover that the twins quickly begin to struggle with one another within her. As the Torah states, "Vayut rotzatsu habanim b'kirba." Really says the children struggled, but the word that's used in the Hebrew is they ran. It's as if they were running inside of her. And she said, "If it be so, why do I exist?" And she went to inquire of the Lord. Well, what was God's answer? The two nations were struggling with one another within her. This inner struggle defined the relationship between the sibling brothers and set the pattern for their favoritism, the favoritism that their parents showed them later in life. The firstborn Esau became the favorite of his father, Isaac, and Jacob, that of his mother, Rebekah. It is interesting to note at this point that the early rabbis, in an effort to justify Rebekah's favoritism, quote in Bereshit Rabbah, that she was a prophet who favored Jacob over her other son because she knew that it was the divine plan all along that Jacob would become the dominant one, the favored one of God, the one who would inherit the divine covenant. Well, Esau and Jacob both seem to know which one each parent favors. This knowledge, this reality, had a strong and negative impact on their relationship. Well, I have to admit that every time I read this story, I can't help but see examples of this sibling rivalry being played out in the world around me, even in my own childhood from long ago. As one of 8 kids, being a twin myself, my childhood seemed to be reliving one biblical dysfunctional family event after another. Such statements as, "Well, mother always liked you best," and "mother always likes me best," were frequently thrown around whenever one of us was angry with the other. But in spite of it all, there were moments of sibling bonding, more moments than sibling bondage, more moments when we came together as a family than moments when we felt compelled to dominate the other. Well, all of this is merely a backdrop for next Thursday as we come together to celebrate and to give thanks for the blessings in our lives. We will pause to express our appreciation to God and to one another for all of the acts of sharing and giving we've experienced throughout the year. Hopefully, we will recall the poor example of our ancestors and not follow their lead when we meet with our families. Pardon me. To return for a moment to this week's portion, we discover that when he was born, Jacob follows his brother Esau into this world by holding on to his heel. And as is frequently the case when the Bible wants to name someone, the event at birth becomes represented in the name that is given. In Hebrew, the word for heel is Akev. Jacob's name becomes Yaakov. Jacob begins life as one who follows upon the heels of his older brother. Initially, he even embodies those characteristics that we think of when we call someone a heel. Then, as he matures, it becomes evident that the divine plan to designate him as a leader, as someone in whose footsteps others will follow, begins to become a reality. Like Jacob of old, the namesake of Israel, we can be a heel, or we can, as Jacob learned to do, lead so that others follow safely upon our heels into the future. And how does this transformation take place? Well, not by just wishing for it to happen. It requires us to pause and reflect on our own lives, the good and the bad, and then to start living in such a way that we fill the lives of others with blessings. And every so often, when we pause and reflect, we also take time to count the blessings others bring into our lives. When we recognize just how fortunate we have been, how well we have been blessed in life, we discover that we have an opportunity to share the fruit of our blessings with others. Well, when we perform these acts of giving and sharing, we are fulfilling the divine obligations that we have committed to do as Jews. In Jewish tradition, we call these acts of sharing and giving tzedakah. Well, in Jewish tradition, tzedakah means righteousness and justice. It's a funny thing about this Hebrew word, tzedakah. It doesn't mean charity. That word comes from the Latin and is defined as, quote, benevolent goodwill toward or love of humanity, end quote. Now, that's a noble goal, but what happens if you don't feel benevolent goodwill or even any love of humanity? Rabbinic tradition says quite simply, like them or not, there are people in this world that need our help. To be a righteous person is to be someone who sees the injustice in the world and then acts upon it, whether or not we know or even like the person in need. But Judaism's focus on family and on the generations who have brought us into life goes beyond just a once-a-year celebration, such as the holiday of Thanksgiving we will celebrate next week. When we, as a congregational family, experience that moment when a bar bat mitzvah stands before us, reading and teaching from Torah and leading us in prayer, when we experience such sacred moments, we come to see that that sacred moment is but one of many in a long chain of holy moments connecting us with the generations to come. This shalshelet Kabbalah, this chain of tradition, becomes an unbroken chain that links the generations who preceded us to the generations who follow after us. But family life today is not the same as it was 100 years ago, and it certainly has never lived up to the innocent, stereotypical families on sitcoms in the 1950s. Families who live within close proximity of one another are no longer the norm. I'm always amazed when I visit a retirement facility at the number of residents whose children live in another city or even a different state. And these same elderly adults are often the ones who quietly go about living their lives without anyone aware of their struggles, especially during these past 9 months of virtual lockdown they have experienced. This aging part of our society, of whom I too will be a member sooner than I want to think about, often become isolated from the rest of the world. Understandably, their health needs have increased to the point where going to the doctor, stopping by the pharmacy, waiting in the doctor's office for hours on end, all of this has become their life, and often without their children or grandchildren around them. Fortunately for others, they do have family to support and care for them. Being one of 8 kids has some advantages, like anonymity. Mother never could keep all of our names straight, but it has some disadvantages as well. Anonymity can also become isolation, quite literally lost in the crowd. My message tonight is rather simple. As we celebrate with our families during this season of Thanksgiving, I would invite each of you, should you be part of the ever-growing group in our society who no longer have aging parents in your lives, either because they are no longer living or because they live outside of the greater Mobile area, to find a way to reach out to just one aged resident, whether they live in an assisted living or nursing home or isolated in their own home. I mentioned last week the wonderful work we can do by volunteering to serve on the Kesher Committee. I extend this invitation once again. What a special and meaningful mitzvah this will be. Please feel free to contact Priscilla Gold-Darby or me or Gil Layden, our president. We would be more than glad to help you reach out and fulfill the mitzvah of connecting with one of these invisible members of our congregational family. This week's portion is all about generations, about family, and about acts of sharing. Through our actions, by reaching out and touching someone, it shows them we care. More importantly, more than just reciting blessings of gratitude to God. Through our actions, we demonstrate to God that we are truly grateful and deserving of a day of thanksgiving. May the divine source of strength and blessing fill our lives with health and love. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, and once again, an early happy Thanksgiving. And now on page 7, Molly and Christopher will lead us in the anthem of Hine Matov.
In name of
Thank you for that. And now I invite Priscilla to unmute herself and to share announcements on behalf of the congregation.
That was a beautiful service, and it's not over yet, so I look forward to the rest. Next week, the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend, November 27th, we're going to share Shabbat services with Rabbi Treef at 6:15. That's going to be kind of like a reunion with him coming back. And some good news about our temple doing better than ever. The temple has advanced its electronic presence to YouTube. And you should know that all former programs and services are now stored on YouTube. When you want to watch past programs, you'll follow the instructions listed in the bulletin. Or you will, like I do, call your grandchildren. You can now also call the temple office. We have some experts on call to help you learn how to sign on to this new program. And good news for Rabbi Kaplan. He's gotten Wednesdays back for his Torah study. And yay. So tune in Wednesday, December 16th at 5:30 via Zoom for the next session. And our wonderful religious school will have classes for the confirmation and religious school on Sunday, December 6th. Now, a tough question. Have you returned your High Holy Day prayer books? Well, to make life easier, I suggest you just call the temple and arrange for a free pickup. How easy will that be? So best wishes, everybody, for a happy Thanksgiving holiday. And please reach out and give some friends, families, members, and congregation members that call. Maybe also call Rabbi Kaplan, who is celebrating his birthday today. Good evening.
Thank you for that, Priscilla. I appreciate it. And now, as we go from these wonderful announcements that speaks of this vibrant congregation, we also recognize that we have members in our congregation who need prayers of healing and health. And so, Priscilla, if you'll share that list at this time, please.
Our prayer for healing this month includes Paul Bradley, Raphael Breen, Harold Fink, Masha Jacoby, Eli Cromers, Murray Muchnick, Mark Siegel, and Mark Sorensen.
And I invite those on this call to unmute yourselves if you wish to share a name of a loved one at this time in need of prayers of healing.
Irene, my friend in Miami, and my dog, Shayna.
Thank you.
Deborah Broussard,
Jennifer Sundberg.
Milton Ellis.
Dina and Hannah Rossman.
Ray Adams and Rabbi Kaplan.
Thank you. I know last week we had also on the list Rabbi Kosofsky. I talked with him earlier today, and he is feeling wonderful and requested that his name now be removed from Misha Barak list, but certainly wanted me to express to each of you his appreciation for all of the prayers of healing. I would also add Sid Brofman, Steve Wechter, Barbara Bell, Wechter Perry, Philip Smith, Carol McCullough, Burton McCullough, and my Aunt Jane Adelson. On page 34, may the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those whom we have named and those whom we hold in our heart. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And to this prayer, may we say, Amen. And now as we turn to page 35 in our booklet and we rise for the concluding part of our service. Let us now praise the sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of the Creator who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. Therefore we bow in awe and thanksgiving before the one who is sovereign over all, holy and blessed one. Please be seated. We'll be reading on page 38. Excuse me. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set you, God, before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life and soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. I invite Priscilla now to unmute herself and to share with us the names that we as a congregation recall every year at this time for a yard site.
We are remembering the following yard sites tonight. Sam Muchnick, observed by Mrs. Frances Muchnick. Helen Silverman, observing this yard site, Barry Silverman and Nancy Pierce. Lisa Graney, observing this yard site, are Mrs. Eileen Sussman and Mr. and Mrs. William Sussman. Peter Sussman, whose memory is being observed by Mrs. Eileen Sussman and Mr. and Mrs. William Sussman. Ricky Sussman, observing this yurt site tonight, are Mrs. Eileen Sussman and Mr. and Mrs. William Sussman. Louis Rader, observing this yurt site, Mrs. Lynn Rader. Samuel Sternberg, observing this yurt site tonight, are Dr. and Mrs. Melville Sternberg. Lieutenant Robert Lotg, observing this yurt site, Mr. and Mrs. Howard Silverman. Robert is Patricia and Howard's son, who was a helicopter pilot who died making rescues during Hurricane Katrina. Arthur R. Seelig, observing this yurt site, Dr. and Mrs. Melville Sternberg. Sylvia Silverman, observing this yurt site, Mr. and Mrs. Howard Silverman. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. And now, if you have other names that you would like to add to this, please unmute yourself and share them with us at this time.
Brooks Broussard, observing Duncan and Callie Broussard Wheeler.
Sadie Adelson.
And to the list of names we have shared with one another, I would like to add the names of all those who have died from the COVID-19 pandemic. And to the names of those spoken aloud, we also include the unspoken names we carry with us in our hearts. For all the names we have spoken aloud, for all the names we hold silently in our hearts, we rise as one congregational family and join together in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 43. Together we say, Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah v'Olma Divra Chirutei v'Amlich Malchutei b'Chayechon u'Yomechon u'Chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael ba'Agala Levizman Kari v'Imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam Olmei Almaya Yit Barach v'Yishtabach v'Yit Pa'ar v'Yit Roman v'Yit Naseh v'Yit Hadar v'Yit Haleh v'Yit Halal Shemei D'Kudisha Brichu Le'elam Min Kol Birchata v'Shirata Tush B'chata v'Nechemata Da'amiram Be'olma v'Yimru. Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya v'Chaim Aleinu ve'Akol Yisrael v'Imru. Amen. Oseh Shalom b'Mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom. Aleinu ve'Akol Yisrael v'Imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen.
Veimeru,
Wonderful. And on page 44, you have your Kiddush cups handy. Please feel free to join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei b'ri hakafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uv'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש, זכר לציאת מצרים. כי באנו בחרת, ויתנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen. And now, when Molly has an opportunity to unwrap the challah, oh, how beautiful. Together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. We'll give her a chance to take a bite, and I'll talk for a minute to give her a chance to swallow so that she can share and lead us in our closing song, one of which the text is not in the book, but it's one I think everyone knows. Master of the Universe, Adon Olam.
I think the text is familiar, hopefully. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Rabbi. Happy birthday to you. That is fairly familiar text.
I love that as a closing song. That's great. Y'all still want to do Adon Olam?
Sure, let's still do it.
Let's go with it. If you're standing, go ahead. Feel free to be seated.
Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem kol b'tzir nivra Leitnasa v'shef sochol Azal melech shemo nikra V'acharei kishlot hakol Levado yimloch nora V'hu haya v'hu hovei V'hu
Adonai li velo ira. God, Adonai is mine, is me, is for me. Velo ira, and I will not be afraid. What a wonderful closing blessing that is. Thank you all so very much. Good Shabbos, everybody.